Hi, everybody. My name is Constance Friedman, and I'm excited to welcome you again to the speaker series with Modern Ventures. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of interviewing the CEOs, these wonderful, I think, like almost celebrities in the industry, we're going to do a breakdown of a thematic topic of interest. Today is sustainability, specifically in the real estate industry. And we're going to introduce a couple founders who are really addressing and solving problems that have to do with it. So before I jump in, I'm going to do a little breakdown, some highlights on why this is important. And then we're going to hear from a few of the founders that are solving the problems within it. So first of all, and I promise this is going to be interactive in a moment, but we're going to just start off with a few slides. Why are sustainability efforts what do we mean when we talk about sustainability efforts, and why are they important? So everything from robotics and 3D printing to solve construction or renew construction, make construction modern day, to water management, furniture. We don't realize how much of our furniture lands in the landfills every day. But this is really a big problem, and we're going to talk more about it. Clean energy and data aggregation, waste management, demand shaving, EV charging, sustainability and materials, smart tech, LED lights have to do with that. Community solar projects have to do with that. Climate has to do with that. And not only do investing in these things, actually making investments or using these things add returns to our portfolio or to our investment strategy, but they create tangible value. And we're going to show some examples of that. And ultimately, it's important to do this if we're going to have a great place to live. And so keeping sustainability top of mind where we work, live, and play is necessary to really change the world and have a world we want to live in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the problems that kind of the real issue that we have if we don't make a change. So what you might not realize is that 40% of global energy is consumed today by real estate. 20% of the total global greenhouse gas emissions come from global real estate. And that number is projected to increase. So there's supposed to be a 56% projected increase in building CO2 emissions by 2030. And still 40% of raw materials globally are used by buildings. So, the impetus for change, not only does everybody realize that this can't go on, but the good news is there's a lot of regulatory pressure. There's public commitments to be meeting carbon neutral targets. There's investor pressure to make this happen. And there's user demand. So customers, consumers, residents, tenants, they're all demanding that we make these changes. And so some of the things that we've been looking at for Modern are different companies that can start having an impact. So we're going to hear from Xeal today, which is an EV charging company. Another investment we've made recently is Vive, which is an antimicrobial lighting technology that fights viruses, bacteria, fungi, yeast, and mold and mildew. Icon, which has changed the construction, completely disrupted the construction industry by printing homes. Typically, the equivalent of an entire building ends up in a landfill. With Icon, it's about a wastebasket amount of waste that ends up in a landfill. Kaiyo, we're going to hear from today, and solving the sustainability issues with furniture. Second Nature is an air filtration subscription service. WattBuy, which is an electricity marketplace for renewable providers. Aquanta, smart water. Solstice, we're going to hear from today, to make community solar available and accessible to everyone. Trash Butler, which is helping to manage waste. And Oro, which is a smart light solution. So these are some of the recent investments we've made, and we continue to have a very big focus on this. But most important today, for the remainder of this, I want to introduce our guests. CEOs of Xeal, Xander Isaacson, Kaiyo, Alpay, and Solstice, Steph Spears. So we're going to start with Xeal. And what I'm going to ask each of these founders to do is, first of all, talk about what their product does and some of their impact, value to our industry, to the real estate industry. And then we'll talk about some of the sustainability efforts and how their products are really solving problems on the sustainability front. And then we'll give some real world examples of how the companies are being used in the industry. So Xander, welcome.
Hey, Constance. So I'm Xander Isaacson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Xeal. And Xeal is a technology-first electric vehicle charger company for multifamily and commercial real estate. Our two core technologies is a power optimization software, which allows you to install more chargers without upgrading electrical capacity. And the patent pending technology is a token payment system, which allows you to process and transact and collect driver revenue without any internet dependence.
And so okay, thank you, Xander. And we have a few stats here that I think are really interesting. So first of all, what we know is that 4.6 metric tons of CO2 are emitted by a typical passenger vehicle each year. 20% of all US emissions is actually accounted for by the transport sector. And so, I guess as part of the solution to that, one of Biden's efforts is to show that 50% of all vehicles are expected to be electric by 2030, and that's one of his big efforts. If you watch any pro sports, every other commercial, it used to be, it's always been about cars. Now it's electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched, Brady lose that game the other day. And the thing I was excited about though was how much, it was kind of like hit me in the face, how many electric vehicles there are really going to be, coming up here. When you watch the NFL and everything's about electric vehicle commercials. So anyways, I think that this is, real, and the car industry has recognized that they need to make a change. Governments are recognizing they need to make a change. And one of the things I'm really excited about of our investment in Xeal is how you guys are making a change. So maybe you can speak to that for a minute.
Definitely. And you're absolutely correct. It's not just the US, it's every single auto company is pumping billions of dollars into electric vehicles. And they're not just making it good for the environment, they're making it the next best version of itself. It's a computer on wheels is the next big thing. So at Xeal, what we're doing is making very easy to charge your car and very easy to manage and operate charging stations at real estate buildings. The core technology itself, the token payment system, it gets rid of the biggest problem, which is charging stations are often down. And it's not because of why you would think being power available, it's because internet goes down a lot and charging stations are dependent on an active connection to work. So by eliminating this entirely, we have 100% uptime, and through 100% uptime, the average charger on our platform saves about 30 tons of CO2 emissions over 5 years. And this is across 100 chargers across different portfolio properties. So at Xeal, the biggest polluter, not Xeal, in the industry, the biggest polluter of air pollution is transportation. And by adding charging stations to the places people need it most, where you're parked the most, where you sleep and where you work, you're having a direct impact on the transportation and pollution.
So why Xeal, Xander? There's other EV chargers out there. Why Xeal?
So the whole kind of theme of sustainability is that you can be self-reliant, right? You're not depending on going to a gas station. You could charge where you park. Now, charging stations aren't completely self-reliant. They need electricity and they also need internet to communicate to a server to basically authenticate users and transact payments, just like everything else works. With us, we've created a patent pending token payment system, which allows these charging stations to process payments without any dependence on anything external. So you can add charging stations anywhere, modern day plug and play, and you don't have to set up IT infrastructure. And the best part of all, because they don't need internet, there's no data plans. So there's no recurring operating expenses. You can monetize all electricity and make money off the assets.
So I don't need Wi-Fi or cellular to install Xeal into my buildings.
Exactly. And because you don't need that, it's also much more secure. You don't need to worry about anybody hacking the charging stations. They work 100% of the time, and they work on a localized network with Xeal.
So as I understand it, even with all this demand, only about 0.5% of all parking spaces currently have EV chargers installed. So this is solving a big consumer demand issue, providing a great customer experience. It's doing so more cheaply and more efficiently and more reliably than competitors, and it's saving 30 tons of CO2 emissions each year across a general portfolio.
That's correct.
Great. All right, thank you, Xander. And we're going to come back for more in a few minutes to talk about how, some examples of Xeal being deployed across the industry. But next, I want to introduce Kaiyo, and I'm sorry I'm moving everybody around, but I figure this is the best way to, mimic a panel on Zoom. So Kaiyo, Alpay, can you please talk about what you do, the problems you're trying to solve for the industry?
Yes, my name is Alpay again. I'm the founder and CEO of Kaiyo. We are a full-service furniture marketplace that's committed to great design, exceptional customer care, and a more sustainable planet. It's right there in our mission statement that we're really about sustainability. What we do is we provide our sellers fast free pickups using our white glove delivery service, which is very much enabled with the technology that we built in-house that helps them make decisions on who gets the fast free pickup and who doesn't. And then there's a whole lot of technology that goes into place in terms of helping us price these items, sell these items. So we do provide an end-to-end solution to anybody who needs to get rid of furniture, or anybody who needs good quality, intelligently curated, and trusted furniture.
And how are you working with buildings to serve their residents in this regard?
Yeah, so we've heard from partners that one of the biggest pain points is people moving out and leaving their stuff behind, which I'm not a stranger to. I moved almost yearly in my earlier days in New York City. This is obviously a pain point because the communities then need to figure out how to get rid of the stuff, and it's expensive to get furniture removed. Usually the stuff that gets left behind is the big pieces. And in the worst cases, residents should take it upon themselves to bring the stuff downstairs, and then the communities have no way of even recovering these costs. They don't even know who brought it downstairs, so they're just stuck with these fees. That we heard is one of the biggest pain points out there. And then there are some pain points around, new furniture delivery being unscheduled, showing up without notice, or just piling up in delivery rooms and things of that nature. What we do differently, and the way we can obviously come in and help here, is that with a very simple referral partnership, where where the community basically refers us to a resident that's about to move in or about to move out, we can get ahead of this problem, make sure that there is as little as possible that's left behind for the community to deal with, as little bad experiences at the end of a customer moving out as possible. They're not going to get charged with fees, and it's simply the right thing to do. Also, from a sustainability perspective, it gives the communities we're working with the ability to say, hey, we're working with sustainability conscious companies to make sure that we're reducing our footprint to the maximum possible. And you can also benefit from this because we provide them discounts to pass on to their customers as well. Great.
And so good segue into the sustainability efforts. So to be clear, 12 million tons of furniture and furnishings are thrown in the garbage every year just in the US alone. 9 million tons of wood, metal, glass, fabric, leather, all the things, and foam, all the things that make up furniture ends up in the landfills. And 45% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from the production of the things that we use every day, the consumer goods. So how does Kaiyo help to balance some of this?
Yeah, so furniture, very few people know, you kind of alluded to this in the beginning, Constance, very few people know that furniture is one of the largest waste categories in Western civilization. If you look at it, it's by far the largest waste category in terms of how much we put into a landfill. And, not surprisingly, it's remarkable to me. This is also a category that's one of the largest asset classes we own as people. After homes and automobiles, furniture is what we all spend most of our money on. Everybody on this call or listening to this call has lots of furniture and knows people with lots of furniture. So we have this bizarre outcome of a lot of spend and very little recovery happening in this sector, which is what we want to change. There is a very clear offset that comes from shopping used in every product category, but because furniture is big and bulky and how intensive it is to manufacture these pieces, the offset that comes from shopping use is actually quite high. We've estimated this to be around 36 kilograms CO2 equivalent in an average piece of furniture. The larger the piece, the bigger the impact. And so there's a major offset that happens from simply by shopping at Kaiyo. But the second thing that we really do is we go one step further. Outside of the core service, obviously making it easy for people not to throw things out on the sell side, and on the buy side, making it easy for them to make a more sustainable choice. We also go a step further and plant a tree for every single order that we receive. And we plan to actually really lean into that effort because our customers are really raving about it.
Yeah, that's great. And so far you've kept about 3 million pounds of furniture out of landfills. So
Almost.
Thank you. That's great.
Cheers.
All right. And last but not least, I'm going to introduce Steph Spears from Solstice. So Steph, can you please talk about what Solstice does?
For sure. Hey, everyone. Solstice is a software company that connects households to community shared solar farms, giving them access to guaranteed electricity savings. And we partner with real estate companies and generate revenue for them when they connect us to their residents. And the problem is that a lot of building owners, real estate organizations, they want to reduce the carbon footprint of their properties, but solar can be complicated, especially when it's on site. It can be capital intensive. There's upkeep, maintenance, and repairs to think of. Residents might find it unappealing aesthetically. You might have to flip the property before you see returns, and there's a lack of tax breaks, and there might be even shading or structural issues that prevent you from building solar on your property. And so there's a new type of solar that's been growing rapidly in the past few years, and it's called community solar. Rather than put solar on your own rooftop, community solar means that you subscribe to a shared solar farm in your area, and it's the most affordable and accessible type of energy available because there's no installation required, no upfront costs, no cancellation fees, and subscribers are getting a guaranteed discount on their electricity bills, typically about 10% off their electricity bills. So we partner with organizations like municipalities, real estate organizations, companies, and we share our revenue with our partners that spread the word about community solar projects to their residents. And we give them $200 for every one of their residents that signs up for free energy and clean energy at that.
So I can access solar without having solar on my property.
Yeah.
And make money off of it.
Yeah, exactly. Clean energy is good for the world. It's good for your pocketbook. So it's something we need more of.
And so, why is this important? Well, I think most of us kind of inherently know that energy and our typical energy usage is bad for the environment. So, what's the good news is that 19.2 gigawatts of new solar capacity was added in 2020, which is a record jump up from 2019. So people are recognizing that solar is an amazing alternative and that we can tap into it. At the same time, it's always thought to have been expensive, and there was a 70% decrease in the cost to install solar panels. And I think that what Steph is the problem that you are really trying to solve is that despite all of this, 80% of households are still locked out of rooftop solar because people don't have the ability or capacity or desire to install it on their properties themselves, whether it's my personal home or the building that I live in or work in. And so, maybe talk a little bit to how your solution is still solving. You talk a bit about how you're providing the access, and so how you're solving that problem. But what is the impact on sustainability in the environment as a result?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, we're living in a really important inflection point in history. So the first time in the history of the world, solar is cheap enough that it can give people access to electricity savings. But so few people can actually install it on their own property because shading issues or, there's a historic rooftop they can't build on, or their rooftop is facing the wrong way, or they don't have the money to install it. And so by making it easier for people to access solar that they don't have to install and they don't have to pay upfront for, we are building more clean energy, which is helping the environment, but we're also putting money in people's pockets. And so a big part of what Solstice is trying to do is share the lucrative nature of the clean energy industry with the people who are connecting households to clean energy, including real estate companies.
That's great. All right. And I'm going to come back to this. This is everybody's contact information, but what I'll do is stop the screens for a moment so everyone can see your beautiful faces. And maybe we can end this session on, a note about, sort of implementation, like how you give a real life case study of how one of your partners are using this in practice. And, everybody's got their own, their own metrics for how they're solving or contributing to solving the environment issue. And so, maybe you can, if you've got examples of how people are using your solution to help kind of solve their global initiative to being greener and being more sustainable, that would be a piece of information too. So maybe I'll bring you back through the same order. Xander, you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. I think starting from top down, so one of our big partners is Harrison Street. And Harrison Street is a big leader in sustainability, but EV charging stations is a little bit new. So what we did is we worked with them to look at their entire portfolio of assets and really evaluate if there was incentives or rebates in specific regions, and if there's mandates coming in other regions. So for those unfamiliar, there's a lot of free money out there for rewarding early leaders to install charging stations now. And there's also mandates coming out in different regions that mandate new developments to install charging stations. So we work closely with Harrison Street to do all of the deep dive with our operations team and see which properties we should start with. And then we created a strategy to basically roll out charging stations in a way that not just meets current demand, but meets the coming demand that we're going to see in the next couple of years. So that's on the top level. And then, going closer to an individual properties, another one of our partners is Catalyst. And they really took a bold stance on sustainability, doing between 10 and 15% conversion of all their parking spaces to charging stations. And one of the properties that we worked with, they had maybe 2 or 3 EV drivers. We installed about 15 charging stations, and within just a few short months, the peer-to-peer dialogues, the consumer confidence, the greater access to a clean fuel directly led to all these different drivers converting to electric. And now almost every single charging station is being used, and it's only been a few months. So it's sort of this idea of bold leadership leads to bold outcomes. And, we love to see it across our partner community.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. We've had a number of people ask us, well, how many, we don't have a lot of people in our buildings today using the EV chargers, right? So, how many chargers should I really consider? What's the demand going to be like? And what's your answer to that? So
the quick answer is that historical data is not indicative of the future. And the new inputs that we have now is that there was about 20 models in the market over the last 3 or 4 years. And there's over 500 cars coming to the market in the next few years. These aren't the same models you're used to seeing. It's the F-150s, the electric Audi. It's these cars that go faster, they can do more, they can self-drive. They're a computer on wheels, and consumers are really excited about it. And when consumers are looking to change their lifestyle, they're also looking to move to places that are progressive and create this access and opportunity for them. So my recommendation is always to build for the future and to build the infrastructure that's going to meet the future demand, not the current demand.
That's great. And I know you mentioned Harrison Street as an example, and many others are creating roles now, like Chief Impact Officer, Environmental Officer, and they're reporting on this. And are they using your data, like the SAGE CO2 emissions, for example, to contribute to their top reporting levels?
Absolutely. Like I said, air pollution, the biggest contributor of air pollution is transportation. And when you're making a direct conversion, not just on your building, but what leaves your building, it's by far one of the biggest impacts you can have as a real estate owner. So for us, they're typically doing between 20% is the average conversion that we see across our top partners. And the reason is because we are expected to see 20% electric vehicle sales over the next few years.
Great. Okay, maybe you can give an example of real world example of how Kaiyo is being deployed within the industry.
Yeah, we're actually partners with one of the firms in your portfolio, a top multi-billion-dollar REIT in the multifamily sector. They're one of the top 10 in the multifamily home operators in the US. The way we partnered with them was through a very simple referral partnership. They basically, as I alluded to earlier, they basically refer us to any incoming residents and prior to residents moving out as well, so that we can get ahead of that people leaving furniture behind problem. It's early, but so far we've been doing really well, especially in their high-rise buildings in the New York region. We anticipate, we did some scenario analysis on it, we anticipate that the lift that they would get from Kaiyo, which is one on the referral revenue side, which is an ancillary revenue opportunity, and two on the cost saving side, due to us just handling this previous pain point, we anticipate they could make $5 million on each side for a total potential of about a $10 million bottom line improvement across all of their portfolio communities.
That's a big improvement from a monetary standpoint, customer experience standpoint, and sustainability value.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely, it's a big company, sure, but $10 million is not pocket change either. And at the same time, it gives them an ability to both improve the resident experience by saying, here's, sustainability company you can shop from, get discounts from us, they can help you move out in this way. And then they can also, they also get the bragging rights of really leaning into ESG efforts.
Yeah, that's great. Stat?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that the way we partner with real estate companies is we share our revenue with our partners for spreading the word about community solar projects to their residents, and we give them $200 for every resident in their network we sign up. And so we've done this in multifamily buildings in New York, Massachusetts, and Illinois, and Minnesota. And there's one particular condo in New York that's actually come to us 3 times to run additional campaigns for their residents because more residents have moved in. And they use their revenue that they got from us to upgrade their common areas. And also another building used it to install solar lighting in their parking lots. And so there are ways that they're showing their residents that they care about sustainability. They're giving their residents more value in terms of electricity savings. And then they're also improving their own ESG standing because our software shows them data around how they're improving ESG by avoiding carbon emissions and saving residents money. So it's not just the E in ESG, it's actually the S as well too.
And the G, because you're making changes on a regulatory level as well.
Yeah, that's true. And then in terms of governance, we are, I think, the only woman or woman of color led company in the space. So that is also changing the G a little bit too.
All right, everyone, thank you so much. As I shared earlier, to meet and learn a little bit more about these amazing founders, I've pulled up their contact information here. And so feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you directly. And thank you so much for being part of this, and for you all listening. Thank you for, I'm really excited to be able to showcase these folks in particular, and just how at Modern we're really thinking about changing the world. Thank you.